It was a little over a year ago that internet activist Aaron Swartz killed himself. Swartz was apparently bereft over facing criminal prosecution for downloading academic articles from an MIT network without authorization. An MIT investigation into its own handling of the Swartz case found no wrongdoing, but said the university should address some of the issues Swartz was trying to raise, namely the free and open access to scholarly information. Today, MIT announced that it is actively doing just that with a specially appointed counsel. I'm joined now by Hal Abelson, who led MIT's investigation into the Swartz case. Welcome back to Greater Boston.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks for inviting me.
So last summer, when this thing came out, basically it said that MIT didn't do anything wrong, but they should have been more sensitive to these ethical issues that Swartz was trying to raise. Well, like what?
Well, partly it's the idea of if you run a university where what you want to do is encourage people to explore, to encourage people to experiment, then if you're in a legal regime where the minute you step over the line, you are subject to really draconian threats, as Aaron Swartz was, that's not a good environment for a university that wants to stimulate innovation.
How did it come to that? Did the U.S. Attorney's Office automatically step in, or did MIT file charges? Why was he ever under investigation or charges by the U.S. Attorney's Office?
Well, what happened was it's unbelievable. There was a series of events that went from about 2 hours from when they found him to when the Secret Service was there. And what happened was the folks who found this in MIT network systems called the MIT Campus Police. The MIT Campus Police take the position that they don't really have the expertise to investigate cybercrime. So they called the Cambridge Police. And it turns out that the Cambridge police officer they called is a member of the Massachusetts local task force on cybercrime, which is run by the Secret Service. The reality that our report tried to say to universities is that when it comes to cybercrime, there's no such thing as local law enforcement anymore. There isn't the friendly cop on the beat who can apply the neighborhood standards. As soon as you do cybercrime, these task forces involve the Secret Service, and that's how this escalated right away.
So the council that you formed, that you made an announcement about today, how is that going to incorporate some of these ethical concerns that Swartz was raising?
Well, that one is much more specifically about MIT's digital records policy, because one of the other things that happened with Aaron Swartz is that MIT released various records to the U.S. Attorney, initially not under subpoena. And for people who've been following the case, that was the subject of various kinds of motions by the defense. But the issues in our report, I think, go broader than that, which is really how you think about MIT supporting students and faculty and anyone who might step over the line. And the question really, is that an MIT responsibility? And that's what the community has to think about.
There's a whole other angle to this, too. We were just doing some research into cybercrime on university campuses because it turns out they're very susceptible to this. There was just a report by this Haylock Securities that surveyed colleges and universities all over the country and said these universities put private data at risk. They don't encrypt emails, all kinds of sensitive financial information, and you can easily access this stuff. And so, in some ways, colleges and universities are complicit to cybercrime.
Well, they're not the only. They're not the only ones.
I know, but
but I'm saying it's pretty.
Us too, yeah.
What I'm trying to say, I was on an MIT panel about, gosh, it must have been 15 years ago, where we said if you're going to be sending student grades in email, you should encrypt the email, and that was 15 years ago.
Did they listen to you?
maybe we'll suggest it again on this new task force.
But it's more important than that. It's data about people's financial, holdings and all kinds of data that goes back and forth about applying for scholarship, everything.
Right. Partly it is technical. So, for example, one of the things MIT has just started to do is making sure that any university computers that hold that information are encrypted. So that's not 100% in MIT, but it's a policy that's starting, and it's actually pretty rare in most universities. And then there's the actual policy. So the policy is very, very tricky. For example, one of the things we're talking about now is we're doing all these massive online open courses where, in principle, you can get information about every time a student in one of those courses clicks a mouse. And now the question is, suppose researchers want access to that data. How do you even think about that? What are the policies? Who do you share it with? What are the conditions under which you release it?
Is this kind of stuff that the council is going to be deciding and how to address it? Isn't that kind of
the announcement that came out mixed up a couple of things, because there is a committee that's talking about data security policy. What kind of internet records do you release or not release? And then there's also another group which is actually thinking about the conditions under which you would release educational information, either for research purposes or other purposes. And both of them are very, very hard, because there's just not general agreement about what you should do.
Going back to the Swartz case, I mean, is this ever going to be totally resolved? I mean, no one knows for certain why he killed himself.
I don't think we'll ever.
Nobody really even knows what the data was that he had breached. I mean, it was nothing all that sensitive.
Oh, what he took was fairly clear. It was academic
journals.
Academic journals. So I don't think there's any.
But there was
issue
no
about that.
larger. He wasn't going after some certain stuff. It was just the point was getting it, not what it was, right?
One of his friends said, Aaron liked data collections, and I don't have any more insight than that. As far as he killed himself, that's. When people commit suicide, what can you say? I mean, you'll never really know. Yeah. And all you can say is it's really tragic.
Of course, facing a prison term is
a
considerable reason. All right, Hal Abelson, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.